Midsize family sedans have not gone away. They've only gotten better. Hyundai Sonata Hybrid and the Toyota Camry, both of them for around 40 grand fully loaded, are delivering 40 mpg in almost any driving situation, very comfortable, a ton of tech, a ton of room, and a lot of style. I'm going to show you what you get with each car and why these two are worth your time. For most car shoppers, hybrids make the most sense if you're going electric. And for 2025, every single Toyota Camry comes as a hybrid, while it's still an option on the Sonata. We're comparing both, an all-new Camry and a refreshed Sonata. Let's see how these two stack up. Hyundai has the more handsome car here. The Sonata already looked good, and for 2024, there's a refresh. It kind of gives it almost the front end of a Lucid. That single LED light bar going from fender to fender, very smooth. It's a sleek car, really. It's a almost beautiful looking car. Not every Hyundai is. Hyundai does some weird things on some of their cars. You can see our other reviews. But the Sonata, they've really aced. And I do think it's a more fluid and more lasting shape than that Camry. On this car in particular, it's the Limited, and that doesn't give you bigger wheels. So if you're looking for that, go to the aftermarket. 17-inch alloys across the board, and this is the Limited trim, and it doesn't really gussy up the exterior any more than the base SEL. But I will say that really fender to fender and bumper to bumper, I do like this one. The Camry is all new for 2025, and the front end gets a lot busier and edgier. There's textures like it's on a Lexus. There's all these swoops and creases that the Hyundai doesn't even have. And down here, those outside lights are accessories. You can't even get them from the factory. They're dealer installed, a little bit more of an edge, even more so than the Hyundai. I don't think it looks quite as good, but in the XSE trim, it does still look very sporty. These dark gray 19-inch wheels, much larger than the Sonatas. 16s come standard on the Camry, but not here. And there's also a black contrast roof. That's an extra charge paint. I do think it looks good, but truly, head to toe, not quite as elegant as that Sonata. The Camry has a cool lighting trick. The yellow DRLs are only like that when you're in the parking light mode. When you turn the car on and drive, they turn white. It's features like this that really make the Camry stand out. Between these two, it's the Sonata's tail that looks sleeker. Not only does it look like a fastback, especially how that deck lid spoiler has these little air fins on it, it's a little cooler for 2024. You got that red band of LED that cuts across the entire trunk lid. It looks nice, it looks geometric, but without going too far. I like what Hyundai's done here. They got a multiple color effect from top to bottom. The Camry, well, it's a Camry. It kind of looks frumpier from all angles here. Still kind of cool, but really not letting its hair down like the front of the car does. I like the look. The taillights are all LED. They've been restyled. But again, there's really not much you haven't seen before on previous Camrys. Not so long ago, hybrid batteries ate up precious trunk space, but not anymore. These cars have exactly the same as they would without them. 15 cubic feet on the Camry and 16 on the Sonata. They're both very cavernous, and for a mid-size sedan, you can fit a lot more stuff than you'd ever think was possible. The size difference between these cars is mere tenths of an inch. The Camry is 2/10 longer, and the wheelbase on the Sonata is 6/10 of an inch longer, and it's 8/10 of an inch wider, and the height, absolutely identical. Let's talk power, because you're actually getting power with both of these cars. The Sonata has a 2-liter inline-4 that makes just over 190 horsepower with a single front electric motor. The Camry makes over 230 horsepower because it has 2 electric motors front and rear for all-wheel drive. It's a 2.5-liter inline-4, and between these two, the option of all-wheel drive is pretty good. You can only get it on the Sonata if you order the gas-only SEL. The Sonata uses a 6-speed automatic transmission, while the Camry relies on a CVT. That's in every single Toyota hybrid. But if you look at the numbers, you're going to see that the Sonata, this Sonata, trumps this Camry. But the Camry and LE front-wheel drive, those numbers are even higher, over 50 mpg. Pretty incredible. Now, when you actually look at the battery size, it's slightly bigger on the Sonata versus the Camry, but toe-to-toe, these cars are posting fantastic numbers. Both of these cars are not quick, but the Camry gets to speed just a hair quicker. It does. There's 2 electric motors instead of 1. And that does make a difference when you put your foot down, and it also does not keep the engine at such a high rev as the Sonata Hybrid. So if I just want to get a little bit of extra speed, as soon as I'm off the gas, engine quiets right down. In many ways, this CVT behaves better than the 6-speed automatic in the Sonata because it's quicker to react. Paddle shifters, not so much, and there's no automatic regen settings here. I can't change the level of regen braking like I can in the Sonata. I really like that feature. I think every hybrid should have that. But even though there's only one non-adjustable setting, the response of the engine and the electric motors, it's better at rest, at speed, and at mid-range. It is noisier inside this Camry. That's because I'm riding on 19-inch tires. They're wider. They're actually pretty aggressive for a Camry. This is the XSE, so it has sport-tuned dampers and springs, but it also has some aggressive all seasons. I gotta say, they have not been squealing at all. Really impressive. So low rolling resistance, even though this gets really high MPG, not quite the priority with this trim as it is with base models like the Camry LE, which is available with front wheel drive and gets over 50 MPG. So smaller tires, 16-inch tires on that model. I think if you get the XLE with the 18s, I think that would help quiet things down a bit. And even if you like the 19s, maybe going with a different tire. This is how it comes stock. So I'm not really happy with the tread noise, but I am happy with the grip. Even around turns, because there's two electric motors, there's no hesitation and there's no tire chirping. Interestingly, when I drove Toyota's RAV4 hybrid, it didn't have the same level of grip that this Camry hybrid now does. And that was just a few years ago, and that was an XSE model. This one, the all-wheel drive, the two separate electric motors acting like they're together, it works better. Where the Camry truly shines and shows its big difference versus the Sonata is when you're on tighter roads, because there's just more control, not only with the steering, but the dampening. Where the Sonata floats a bit more and kind of wafts a bit, it's a nice riding car. This one feels more planted and I'm having more fun. And this is how Toyota actually advertises it. And really, like every new Toyota, all the new chassis that they've made are just, they feel stiffer, they just feel better. Like even a base Corolla drives really well. This Camry, same way. So even though most people won't drive their Camrys the way I'm doing it right now, if you enjoy driving and if you just like the feeling of getting off an exit ramp and having the car stick and respond to you, this is the better choice. It is. I was very surprised at how well this is. Even now, every Camry is a hybrid. Like, it's good. And on the rougher roads, the lower profile tires on this car, yes, they definitely eat into the ride. There's more vibrations. But the chassis is solid. There's nothing shaking and rattling in here. It's just the fact that there's more noise coming in. There's a little bit more, well, there's just more road feel happening here. Not in a great way, where the Sonata really isolates that. This is making me vibrate my voice right now. So maybe the most aggressive XSE trim is not truly the best Camry trim. Best looking, sure. But I think you can actually go one step below. It's odd that I'll say that, but it's true. I think this Camry's chassis and the suspension setup is so good as it is that you don't need the bigger wheels and tires. Toyota has a feature that works at 25 miles an hour and below, traffic jam assist, and it uses this infrared camera here to track your eye movements. They're showing people taking their hands off the wheel. I'm not gonna do that now because they're doing 55. It's very good because the lane tracing, the self-steering, very good, but it is not a true hands-free system, but it's doing more than the highway driving assist does in that Hyundai. Just a little bit. Having two electric motors rather than one means the power goes down much quicker, and I really just like how this handles better. Right out of turns, you can really get on the gas, and it's smoother. It doesn't interrupt the flow at all. That's why Toyota's hybrid system really just stands above every other hybrid system that any other car company makes. They've been doing it longer and better than anyone. that is the truth. It's not an opinion. It really is the truth when it comes to Toyota in this industry for hybrids. So, does it mean that this car is going to work for you in every single way? Possibly not. But for me, having driven all these hybrids for well over a decade now, I gotta say, they have perfected it. I also just like the braking feel. It's a little bit more immediate. Both cars are really good, but I don't have to really push this pedal down to get a good response. It's very reactive. The Sonata Hybrid accelerates more like a regular Sonata because there's 6 forward gears, actual gears, versus a CVT. And while that may seem like it's better, like it'd be more responsive, it's not. Interestingly, these paddle shifters work in 2 different ways. So if I'm in sport mode, I'll switch to that, they work like traditional gears, right? Left for lower gears, right for higher gears. But if I'm in the eco mode, which is the default driving mode, when I tap the paddles, it's adjusting the brake regen. If I tap the left, I can go to 1, 2, or 3, definitely slowing down now, tap up, bring it back to normal or 0. If I hold down the right paddle, it brings up the automatic regen, and that's using the radar sensors in the front to automatically brake the car to a desired speed depending on traffic, depending on road conditions. That's a really smart feature. It's actually called Smart Regen. You can enable it right here in the touchscreen. I like it. I like that there's multiple options and that this works more like an EV. Camry doesn't have any of that. Once up to speed, the Sonata is the quieter car. I feel like it's a little bit more insulated, just in terms of the windows, for example. Really, it's the tires. These are 17 inches versus the 19s on that Camry, and they're not aggressive at all. They're made for comfort, for low rolling resistance. They're really the tires you'd probably want on a car where you're doing a lot of miles, and you're not going to be taking this into the turns. For that reason alone, the Sonata, even though 17-inch tires are the max you can get, it's definitely quieter and I would say a little bit smoother riding. The Sonata has a highway driving assist that will show the same information you're seeing now on the head-up display. It will also automatically change lanes when you use the blinker on marked highways. The Camry will also do the same. But it's not a subscription-based system like you'll find in the Toyota. That uses the Toyota Drive Connect software where you have to pay a fee and it's updating the maps, updating the sensors to keep that system active. This one just works all the time and it works pretty well. Even though there's only a single front electric motor, it makes roughly the same amount of horsepower that the Camry's does. And the Camry isn't running in all-wheel drive all the time. Most part, it's running in front-wheel drive, so it's only using that single motor. So considering this is down on power, down on torque, the Sonata Hybrid actually moves pretty well. Transitions between gas and electric, to me, are just as smooth as the Camry when you're at speed. It's only when I'm stopped that sometimes this system hesitates. It will sometimes do it, then it sometimes won't do it. So this system is more inconsistent in how the electric motors and the gas engine are operating. And for example, if I really need to get on the gas to pass somebody, this definitely takes more time. Not horrible, but there's more time, that's more milliseconds, really more delay before the car does anything at all. This is a very calm riding car, more so than that Camry. This feels more like a Lexus, approaching maybe Genesis level, but where it doesn't match cars like the Genesis G70 or any number of those models really is in the turns. Because while the steering is okay, certainly not as direct and as well weighted as the Camrys, it's really all the little kind of undulations in the road where this car tends to pick up those surfaces and it kind of just rides like this. Not bad, but truly I feel like I'm bobbing and weaving a little bit more than that Camry. This is still good. I'm having a good time driving it, but between the two, the Camry scores higher in terms of handling poise. And I also like the seats better in the Camry. This, I'm kind of rolling around a little bit more and I don't feel quite as supported. Not just on back roads, but just in general. What's easy though, that in both of these cars, you can drive 40 mpg in really any driving situation. You don't have to try hard. You don't have to feather the throttle. You can go quicker, you can go slower. You're getting great mileage. So both of these cars are so evenly matched. I just wish that the Sonata had all-wheel drive as an option, and it does, but only on the gas model, not on the hybrid. I'm driving over the same rough road that I was before in the Camry, and these tires and the suspension soak it up a lot better. They really do. Really good isolation in this car. If you're valuing comfort above all, this is the one to have. Personally, I like a bit of a balance. I want to have more road feel with that comfort, and I don't get it in the Sonata. But unlike the Camry, when I'm using these paddle shifters to go downhill, just to slow down, it's seamless and there's no noise. So in fully electric mode, the car is slowing down and it's smooth. I really like that. The fact that I can adjust this, absolutely fantastic. The brake pedal is a bit spongier in the Sonata Hybrid. Still feels good, but not as confidence-inspiring as the Camry. The Sonata has 4 more inches of extra legroom. Otherwise, all the dimensions are basically the same, but the auto windows are only in the front, not in the back. It's a little annoying. 4-way passenger seat over here versus 8-way in the Camry, but it's 8-way over here, and they both heat and cool. The Sonata has the more expensive looking interior. The curved display takes up one entire unit for both the instrument panel and the infotainment. The way the metal look trim is curved and also integrates with these air vents and the center stack angled toward the driver. It's a good looking design with a mix of digital and physical controls, even though the materials aren't all as good as the Camry. This column shifter is not my favorite style of gear selection, but it's semi-intuitive. Back for reverse, forward for drive, and a button here for park. It's still not as simple as it could be. To me, the Camry feels a little airier. These pillars are a little thinner, and the shoulder line further down on the car, so it's easier to see out. Plus, there's this, a gear selector that moves like every gear selector has ever moved. The new Camry kind of has a look of a Lexus LS with all these strakes all over the dash, and the way the center stack is really narrow. Other than that, it's very wild compared to the Sonata, especially in this bright red trim on the XSE. But even though you don't have to get this color on every single Camry, the materials are definitely better on the door, including the plastics. There's equal headroom in the Camry as there is in the Sonata, but these seats are more comfortable and the front passenger seat moves in 8 ways instead of 4. Plus, auto up and down rear windows, that's a small feature, but it makes a big difference. Considering how much this roof slopes, there's a ton of headroom in the back here, a lot of legroom, air vents, USB ports, and the Camry does not have this, but side shades. Nice feature. Despite what the specs say about there being more legroom in the back of the Camry and just as much headroom, I feel like it's slightly tighter, including the tow room under here. That might not seem like a very big difference, but it might be if you're sitting in the back seat for quite some time. The good things, panoramic moonroof, air vents, rear USB ports, and there's no side shades, but you could buy those yourself. The Sonata's 12-inch touchscreen finally runs wireless Apple CarPlay and wireless Android Auto. That's a big change from other Hyundai models. Very welcome, and it's also nice to have hard buttons here for volume and tuning and setup, which there's many options. And unlike the Camry, there's so many ways to adjust on this screen, not just the instrument panel, and everything is just much better laid out. The graphics are better. Look at all the descriptions here. I'm not gonna go into every single one of these because if you were sitting here, you would see all of this and it would explain it for you. That's how good this system is. A digital key is also available and tons of great 360 cameras, this rendering here, plus a crazy feature that really no one needs. We've demoed this before, the smart remote parking assist, whatever Hyundai calls it. It's fun, but completely unnecessary. And no, the Camry can't do it, but you're not gonna really use this feature. But overall, along with the 64 color ambient lighting and this touch sensitive controls here, which aren't my favorite, but are still very easy to use. Again, analog controls. The Sonata definitely has the better layout. The instrument panel is nice and clean. You have a few options for navigation, for showing the driver assists, and of course the hybrid operation, but this doesn't really do as much as it should. There's a few graphical changes here, and I can also make it simpler to just show the numbers. But really, I'd like to see full screen maps, but it is certainly easier to use than everything that's in the Camry, but it is also less fully featured. The Camry has a 12.3-inch touchscreen. It also runs wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, and because it does, there's really no need to use the navigation. This requires you to have a subscription after a year. The Hyundai, it's completely free, so not sure why Toyota does that. There's also not a lot of options in here. It might seem like it, but the amount of control that you get here, not nearly as what you'll find in all of the systems on the Sonata, and I think it's also organized and described a lot better. Also, the cameras really aren't all that good. Yeah, you can see kind of underneath the car and it'll do this kind of 360 view, but even the backup cameras, I can't even see across the sides of the wheels like I can in the Sonata, so just not as full-featured of a system. But I do like the fact that there's climate controls and heated and cooled seats right here, so that's nice. It's just not really as good of a system. The Camry makes up for it with the instrument panel. You get 3 different presets that you can cycle through. So basically, I can control what's in the center, the left, and the right, and the car will remember that. A lot of different ways to customize this. I like that. You can see the all-wheel drive, the way the energy monitor is. So I do like this. However, if you want to go into the settings, there's even more. And going up here, unfortunately, Toyota still uses acronyms. So if you don't know what any of these systems are, you're gonna have to read the manual or just guess. It's not really good for that. And unfortunately, if you want to change what the graphics actually look like, it's so much harder to do than in the Sonata, but it's available. So I like all the functionality here. It's just slower and it's a little bit more cumbersome, but there's more features available. So I'll do a couple of points here for the Camry. The 2025 Toyota Camry starts at $28,400. There's 4 trims, and as tested, the XSE with accessory lighting, wheels, the Premium Plus package, and destination came to $44,569. It comes with 2 years of maintenance. The 2024 Hyundai Sonata Hybrid starts at $30,800. There's 2 trims. As tested, the Limited with destination and floor mats, $38,560. It comes with 3 years of maintenance and a 5-year warranty versus the 3-year warranty on the Toyota. It might seem like the Toyota is too expensive, but if you compare it as a front-wheel drive car without those accessories, it's just under 40 grand. The Sonata came so close to winning this comparison. I think it's the better looking car inside and out, and the technology delivers a better experience. But it's the Camry that delivers the real goods, the hybrid powertrain. Not only is it more powerful and efficient, it truly drives better, it handles better. And the option for all-wheel drive in this segment, I think, is a game changer. But what do you think? Go to CarGurus.com, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and keep coming back for more of our comparison tests. We got so many coming up. We'll see you next time.